Hi, welcome to the Second Rainbow Coalition Reading Group. We are reading The Young Lords by Johanna Fernandez, and today we are starting the last section, the Coda. Beware of movements. Mass demographic transfers portend epic change. In 2006, Mexicans and others from Latin America took to the streets of cities across the United States in the millions to protest racism, repression, exploitation, and workplace abuse. The vast settlement of these migrants happened over the course of at least 2 decades, beginning in the 1980s. Like Puerto Ricans in 1947, they had been pushed out of their countries by the economic devastation wrought by structural adjustment, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and other US-led economic policies. When they finally came out of the shadows to claim their humanity, the magnitude of their strikes and demonstrations shocked the country. No American saw them coming. The changes wrought by World War II and by US-led post-war global restructuring produced similar tectonic shifts that reorganized the world. Domestically, the mass demographic transfer these shifts produced among people of color from countryside to city laid the seeds of unanticipated developments, like the rise of civil rights, Black Power, and women's movements of the 1960s. The last thing the U.S. captains of post-war, hold on, page jumping. Woo, that just did some acrobatics. There we go. Thank you, Sean. The last thing the U.S. captains of post-war global restructuring imagined was that Operation Bootstrap's escape valve, migration, would lead to the rise on the U.S. mainland of a movement to free America's major colony, and that it would be fiercely led not by the people of the island, but by the Americanized children of the Puerto Rican migration and the Puerto Rican diaspora. Puerto Ricans migrated into the civil rights movement and were radicalized by the anti-war, Black Power, women's, and gay liberation movements. But the social location of the children of the Puerto Rican migration as translators and cultural interlocutors between their parents and America's hostile bureaucracies gave them second sight. Combined with their experience of discrimination in the public schools and with police, these experiences established the emotional foundation for the radicalization of those who became young lords and the tens of thousands who identified with them. Right on. Why the fuss? The story of the young lords is intoxicating to many because it resonates with the suffering and aspirations of millions of young people who are outsiders in America. Like the children of NAFTA who migrated from Mexico and other parts of the Caribbean and Latin America in the 1980s and 1990s, the young lords also underwent the crucible of migration as children following Operation Bootstrap. They inspired their generation and they inspire today because they gave their generation the language and analysis to make sense of the trauma produced by the large-scale economic and political forces that massively displaced their parents from their homeland. They also helped their peers understand their parents' place in American society as exploited, racialized, colonial people, and the structural barriers they faced in an increasingly deindustrialized and dilapidated city. In their quest, they discovered and asserted in public discourse the distinctiveness of their identity in the United States. For these reasons, the Young Lord's legacy speaks to a cross-section of American youth. Would anyone else like to take a turn and read a couple pages?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Thank you, Comrade Shea.
Like migrants today, Puerto Ricans were blamed for the problems of American society. Once upon a time, Puerto Ricans, like Black Americans, formed part of this country's super exploited working class. Like Mexicans and other people from Latin America today, they were heavily concentrated in the lowest paid, dirtiest, and most precarious and dangerous sectors of the economy. 70% were employed in hospitals, restaurants, and hotel trades. Their social station informed their social station informed the dominant narratives about them in public discourse. As historian Barbara Fields aptly observes in her discussion of race ideology, people are more readily perceived as inferior by nature than they are already seen as oppressed. Not surprisingly, Puerto Ricans were perceived both as welfare dependents, knife-wielding criminals, and junkies on the one hand, and as mild-mannered people who could be punished around on the other. Like Black Panthers, the Young Laws changed this trope. Their intrepid organizing campaigns, literature, board political analysis, and media survey.
Oh.
Wait a minute, what happened there? And survey, where was I at? Like Black Panthers, the Young Laws changed their trophy. Their intrepid organizing campaigns, literature, board political analysis, and media survey reclaimed the dignity of New York's hardest working and most exploited working workers and replaced stereotypes with powerful images of radical, strategic, and articulate militancy. As Barry got to New York, Mayor Leslie's assistant told me in an interview the young laws could be placated with anti-poverty money, and you couldn't mess with them either. They took over a church and the hospital and made out like bandits on the evening news. Growing fascination with the Young Laws Party is also rooted in the dramatic, smart, even humanist campaigns and strategic use of media. The party's inventive protest made even its haters like take a second look. It made known its collective persona, built built its ranks and reputation, and broadened support for its causes. The Young Laws did not work at a black tweeter in the streets. They inspire because they defy major social taboos. They denounced their parents' attempts to sever in the public sphere any association between Puerto Ricans and Black Americans. But the Young Laws didn't move. They embraced the politics of the most prosecuted and maligned Black Power group of the 1960s and adopted its organizational model. Underlaid by fear and determined by their hearts to right the wrongs of society, they borrow into a relationship with the least of these, the Black Panther Party. Although they didn't know it at the time, they were making common cause with the era's most iconic organization. They were also determined to bring into the light of day conversations that once had been confined to hushed whispers among Puerto Ricans and other Latinos. They denounced anti-Black racism in Puerto Rico and Latin America and theorized its root causes. They also challenged machismo, the oppressive character of the family, and the virginal discourse of the church. Like Radical before that, the woman of the organization theorized intersectionality before it became a thing. At the same time, they were attentive to the primacy of class structures and grounded their analysis of gender inequalities in structural critique of the family, capitalism, and colonialism. Like most radicals active across the world since the second half of the 19th century, the Young Laws studied Marxism and studied socialism as an alternative to capitalism. Puerto Ricans suffered violent political repression of their independence movements in the 40s and 50s. The Mossad's from the authorities was clear. Political talk could end with imprisonment or death. The young laws, alongside others, broke through the taboo of political activity. They reclaimed the Puerto Rican flag, restored its political cultural meaning, and linked it once again to the struggle for independence. Wow. Give me a minute. Give me 1 second. What happened here? Ooh.
Oh, we lost your screen share, Sean.
Trying to unmute myself so when I go to read.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. The young lords had their finger on the pulse, not just of the moment.
Okay, the young lords had their finger on the pulse, not just of the moment, but also of the future. They built a profoundly multi-ethnic movement. Approximately 25% of their members were Black Americans, and between 5 and 8% were non-Puerto Rican Latin. Among them, Cubans, Dominicans, Mexicans, Panamanians, and Colombians. The Young Laws members reflected the demographic character of post-modern city of the New York City, of which New York and Los Angeles are today their best expressions. You know, going back to this characterization, the Cubans, Dominicans, and Mexicans, Panamanian, Colombians, I'm quite sure that there were also some Native Americans in the party.
Probably.
The Young Laws were among the first to use the term Latino, based on common currents in the history and policy of people in Latin America and the mass displacement from their homelands as a result of U.S. economic and imperial policies in that continent. So what? But what of their short-lived existence? As history shows, movements are not measured by duration. As the Russian revolutionary V.I. Lenin put it, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. That's very true. Social movements and the organizations are not measured temporarily, but in terms of impact and the extent to which they shift consciousness, public debates, what's affected and how we live. At its height of active membership, the Young Laws had 1,000 members over the course of its life. However, approximately 3,000 people joined the party or its other organizational iteration across the Northern Corridor. The Young Laws' dizzying pace of organizing one reforms, perhaps the group's most famous acts, their audacious garbage dumping protest, pressured the City Hall to find solutions to the citywide crisis of sanitation and forced the sanitation department to conduct regular neighborhood garbage pickups in East Harlem and beyond. A quarter victory was the group's door-to-door campaign to test children for lead poisoning in the tenements of East Harlem, which Young Laws conducted alongside medical personnel. One of the people who did that was Mickey Melendez. The American Journal of Public Health took note. It credited Young Law activism with pressuring City Hall to finally pass New York's anti-lead poisoning legislation in the early 1970s. The group was also the architect of the framed 11-day occupation of an East Harlem church, which gave Puerto Ricans a big coming out party in New York. It was there that they anchored a renaissance in Puerto Rico art and reclaimed the Afro-Taino roots of their culture. Even Stan Lee, creator of Marvel Comics, beloved character, took note. In his amazing adventures, the Inhumans and the Black Widow, the characters, the young warriors, bear a striking resemblance to the Young Laws. In the series, the young warriors convinced the Black Widow, previously of Mayor KGB villain, how a hero in the fight against late 60s urban inequality. The taking over in East Harlem building to provide free breakfast for children at its normal cost. Somebody else take over, please. My
Sure.
eyes.
Perhaps the most dramatic of Young Lord's campaigns was the 12-hour occupation of the alien Lincoln Hospital in the South Bronx. Occupied with the blessing of community groups and a radical flank of doctors and residents, the actions led to the creation of one of the principal acupuncture drug treatment centers in the Western world, and the construction of a new hospital building, which had been promised 10 years earlier, among other victories. They believed that human rights are most important when we are most vulnerable and most human when we are sick, and demanded free health care for all. In the context of this city's larger decentralized health rights movement, they also drafted the first known patient bill of rights in collaboration with hospital workers and medical staff at Lincoln. The Young Lords exposed police brutality and fought police repression in the streets. And in 1970, following the death of one of their own in the infamous New York City jail known as the Tombs, the Young Lords reoccupied the East Harlem Church, this time with firearms. They homed in on the deplorable conditions of the city's jails and put forward demands for prisoners' rights. Their actions came 1 year before the Attica Rebellion and immediately after a series of prisoners' rebellions across the city, which Mayor John V. Lindsay identified as the most difficult crisis of his tenure. The Young Lords' occupation compelled the mayor to initiate the city's first municipal investigation of the arrest of a citizen and of the prison conditions that led to his death. Ahead of their time, they formed part of the era's prisoner rights movements and exposed imprisonment as a tool of repression against radicals, the poor, the black, and the brown. Although much of the 1960s has been primarily understood within the framework of discrimination and citizenship rights, the issues around which the Young Lords built a movement reflect the full range of social and economic problems with which the civil rights and Black Power movements were concerned. This history of the Young Lords highlights the central role of class-based approaches to organizing in the era's most effective campaigns and coalitions. It demonstrates the ways in which hospitals, schools, prisons, housing, and neighborhoods were focal points of movement activity. Increasingly, movement activists were concerned with finding solutions to problems as pedestrian as garbage collection and the removal of lead paint from tenement walls, fighting urban renewal, and addressing the crises of healthcare and its delivery, social welfare programs, childcare services for poor and working class mothers, and unemployment. In their writings on what has become known as the urban crisis, sociologists and historians depict a process that prostrated communities of color in northern cities. In their totality, these campaigns suggest that urban dwellers themselves were among the first to identify, analyze, and launch a fight back against these developments. And while mainstream discourse does not associate the civil rights or Black-Brown power movements with gains beyond those pertaining narrowly to issues of race, campaigns launched by organizations like the Young Lords helped stretch the country's definition of citizenship and democracy. By pressuring local government to solve local neighborhood problems, these radicals established standards of decency in city services for city dwellers that expanded the definition of the common good. Thus, however, inchoately, late 1960s radicals articulated and struggled with issues pertaining to a socially and economically egalitarian polity. Polity? Polity. There's a couple of words in there I don't know.
That's okay.
What works? Huh? What? Oh, you sent me a message? Sorry about that. My sister's trying to ask me something. Chocolate? Uh, give me just 5 more seconds. Oh, she's asking me about dinner. All right. Um, for today's organizers, the Young Lords offer a wealth of practical lessons. First and foremost, if your intention is to build a movement that responds to the conditions of real people, there is no substitute for hands-on organizing on the ground level and at the local level. Bold, direct action that stops the normal functioning of municipal life, captures the attention of media. Oh, lost my place. Oh, media and the public, shifts the terms of political debate and broadens the public's understanding of social problems. The Young Lords conveyed the consequences, among other things, of the profit motive in healthcare by putting a human face on the crises generated by government neglect and capitalism, and by telling stories. Dang, I keep losing my place. And they used humor to make this sacrilegious sacrosanct. There we go. Organization, political education, and discipline matter. Democratic debate matters, as does political training, which helps raise the caliber of political assessment and analysis in organizations. Prefigurative politics are crucial as well. Organizers who convey through their actions what they envision in their new society will prevail. Meanwhile, the presence of racism, sexism, homophobia, and heteronormativity, there we go, weakens organizations. Fighting these toxins is difficult, but makes organizations stronger. And the Young Lords, often self-critical, humorous, approach offers a sensible rejoinder to our contemporary cancel culture. For example, at some point during the first conflict in the People's Church, one young lord asked all the men to give their seats to women and children. But when he heard muttering in some quarters and lack of movement in others, he piped up, "And if that's male chauvinism, forget about it." Success comes with its challenges. Managing quick organizational growth is unwieldy, particularly when a group is unprepared. Trust is key to organizing. Love and politics are both glorious and blinding. Establish rules and values around those inevitable human factors. One can't disappear the individual in the struggle for a more egalitarian society. The individual needs to breathe. Dissolving the individual into the group kills critical thinking and creativity and tends towards the cult. Movements need to connect the local to the national, and if you look closely enough, the local is often connected to the international. But above all, movements must leverage power. While the Young Lords attempted to provide a critique of capitalism, their service-oriented strategy alone, however militant, lacked the muscle necessary to qualitatively affect the deep structural changes taking place in the cities, much less transform society. The kind of change they espoused would have required linking neighborhood concerns to those articulated by a broader coalition organized around the interests and concerns of the exploited and oppressed of different races and ethnicities. Although the Young Lords Party had brilliant tactics, the group's long-term political aims were hampered by the poverty of the left tradition in the United States, especially following the expulsion of communists, radicals, and progressives from American institutions during the Red Scare in the 50s. Absent an influential tradition of left organizing in local communities seeking to connect neighborhood organizing with resistance in the trade unions, the practices and strategies of emerging 1960 radicals like the Young Lords increasingly fell into a vacuum. While the Young Lords launched an impressive course of grassroots campaigns in the 1960s, the larger radical movement to which they belonged failed to coalesce around a broad campaign calling for wealth redistribution, the mass creation of jobs, and an extensive housing construction initiative. These were fundamental changes which would have been necessary to alter the structural problems of urban decline and economic and racial inequality. The movement did not leverage the social power required to achieve these radical reforms. The labor upsurge of the 1970s represented possibilities for a community and labor coalition that may have been capable of enacting significant socioeconomic and political changes. In fact, the Young Lords and many other groups began to organize in workplaces during this period, but their efforts were stymied by the inexperience of the New Left and by the advent of economic recession and conservative restoration, which undermined the mass character of the movement. Knowing when to retreat from social protest is as important as knowing when to advance a bold political project. Ironically, with the Young Lords' decision to move to Puerto Rico, the group narrowed its reach and appeal, choosing to organize along lines of ethnicity. In the process, the organization lost a significant number of Black American and Latinx members who were not Puerto Rican. Coming at a time of widespread movement exhaustion, increased political repression, and pessimism about the prospect for a revolution in the United States, this shift in perspective was also accompanied by an obsession with theoretical purity that was disconnected from a concrete assessment of the social and political conjecture of the early 1970s. War, recession, and the rise of political conservatism were demoralizing the nation, and the times increasingly called for an organizational perspective suited to a period of retreat from social protests. Anybody else want to read? Oops.
I can read.
Thank you.
The Age of Great Dreams. Imprinted in the Young Lord's evolution from gang to political organization is a powerful story of agency and rebirth. This extraordinary and deliberate political transformation on the part of poor urban youth challenges the dominant historical narrative of radical movement of the 1960s, which features white students, urban rioters, and a narrowly conceived new left as its major protagonist. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
The Young Lords formed part of the New Left, the political, cultural, and intellectual 1960s movement that ended radical segregation, made racism and sexism unpopular, transformed the socio-political standings of people of color and women in the United States, challenged
Heteronormative. Yeah.
heteronormativity, and made the questioning of foreign policy acceptable in U.S. society. Within that movement, the Young Lords, like the Black Panthers, built revolutionary organizations led by people of color that popularized socialism in the United States. Like other radicals of the time, the Young Lords adapted to the American context the vanguard organizational forms, political strategies, and the cultural style of people fighting for the self-rule in the Third World. As their various offensives suggest, they forced change by shocking and disabling normal city life. They adapted to urban protest the rhetoric and style of Third World guerrilla warfare. but their adaptations were also influenced by the conditions to which they necessarily had to respond in the US context. While third world revolutions icononize, oh my God,
That's okay. Go ahead. You got it.
Iconized.
iconized peasant guerrillas, the Black Panthers and the Young Lords identified the lumpen proletarian
Proletariat.
as the most revolutionary class in society. The lumpen orientation of the late 1960s radicals reflect the deep economic changes taking place in northern cities, where economic reconstruction and the flight of industries to the suburbs created a class of permanently unemployed and discouraged young workers, an unprecedented development in modern urban history. In this context, the organizing and politics of radicals like the Young Lords reflected the distinctive social features of the urban environment in which they grew up. In addition, the vast relocation of white Americans from city to suburb and the emergence of greater radical segregation in northern cities influenced the strong nationalist character of urban radical politics. In this environment, the ideal of people of color fighting together with white Americans for change grew more and more difficult to enact, as the daily lives of these populations grew further and further apart. Instead, dramatic action was created by polyglot groups among people of color birthed of the increasingly multi-ethnic character of the American slum. The history of the Young Lords is poignant and
Poignant.
unique because of what it foreshadowed. The group built a local urban movement around social issues that would become central in public policy debates during the 1880s and 1990s. These include an increasingly intractable
Yeah.
healthcare crisis, the neighborhood consequences of deindustrialization and municipal budget cuts, the growing disrepair
Disrepair.
of American cities, the swelling incarceration of people who could not be employed by urban economics, and an overtly self-interested American hegemony and foreign policy. In many ways, the Young Lords' politics and preoccupations, especially those concerning issues of employment and class stratification, foretold the story of the end of the American dream, which had always been an elusive prospect for the most radicalized groups, but which also began to unravel for working and middle-class white Americans with their long-term economic decline that began with the recession and the oil crisis of 1973. Now
That's
what?
fine.
Like many of us, the Young Lords had a complicated relationship to this country and lived as hopeful citizens, but also strangers to America. Similarly, the children of migration. They are emblematic of the quintessential working class experience that defines so much of American history and culture. Even today, their concerns mirror those of working people in the United States and around the world. And though their tactics and rhetoric may appear more extreme than most, their deepest desires are ones that we can all relate to. Decent health care, the possibility of dignity in employment, a living wage, responsible city services, and basic economic and social equality. The story of the Young Lords reveals a great deal about the profound victories, but also the pitfalls of collective action for the common good. The history of the 1960s continues to be revisited by people of all walks of life, because the last time our country witnessed a surge of sustained radical movements for social change. I hope this history of the Young Lords will provoke a deeper conversation about the difficult time when the center would not hold, about its triumphs and setbacks as a group of unlikely organizers fought for what they considered the highest aspirations of humanity. Through this work, perhaps a new generation of Americans, and others as well, can find a more nuanced understanding of the significance of community-based class struggle and the complex ways those on the outside expanded our conception of the common good, American democracy, and human liberation.
And I believe that is it for today.
Indeed it is. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I am gonna have to sort out dinner for me and my sister here, which means I gotta get in the car and go get something. I'm gonna stop screen sharing for now.
Okay. Well, thank you for screen sharing the book today, Sean. That was awesome of you.
I will try to still be listening and all that, while I go get all that.
Okay. Cool, cool. All right. Well, the floor is open if anybody has any thoughts they'd like to jump in here with about the section we just read today.
Comrade Che, can you re-enlighten us for those that did not visit yesterday's reading when we were mentioning Gloria and her actions and how it kind of led to this part, but at the same time, how in closing it says how much attributes the young lords had made on a humanitarian level amongst the peoples, but Comrade, can you enlighten us on that? Because you had a lot of important things to say yesterday. That's all.
Well, we need to go back to the leadership, during that period, which was Gloria Fontanes, which was the wife of what's his name?
My last name Myers.
No, well, not Myers, but beforehand, she was married to this journalist. He was he's a young law. What was his name? He moved to Chicago.
Oh yeah, I forgot his name, but yes, it was another young comrade brother. I think it's one of the ones that stepped away at the time she started getting dictatorate.
Exactly. He wasn't stepped away. He was
he
was the what is that? Well, we call it in prison expelled. Because I'm gonna keep it simple, man. Because when we expel somebody from the party in prison, we did just that, expel them. So it wasn't a motive as they claim, as they said it out here. But anyway, the sister, she became very dictator. And she was part of the reason why people went to Puerto Rico, man, trying to establish an organization over there. But they went over there with the wrong intentions, because instead of them working from the ground roots, they started, like a bullying people, man, to get involved with the party, and a lot of them, most of them. Well, there wasn't too many of them. There was about 8 of them. They didn't know no Spanish, so they had a lack of communication between the Puerto Ricans that were from the young laws that were gone over there and the Puerto Ricans that were there. There was a lack of communication, and that's one of the reasons why it caused a lot of conflicts and it didn't go that nowhere, So what happened was that the young laws, they came back to the state, and they began establishing the workers, revolutionary workers. What was that? The workers, Brother Joe, you remember that WOO?
RWCO or something.
Yeah, the workers revolutionary workers party, something like that. They
Yeah,
came back and they established that, man, with the intentions of terrorizing the party, because at that point, man, most of the people in the party were lumpins. So
yeah,
they
yeah.
came back.
I
They
think it was
came,
a WRPPV,
yeah,
to be
something like that.
exact.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. So they came back and they tried to establish a workers party in the United States, but it didn't work out, man, because a lot of people that came, that a lot of people were lumpers, man. Most of the party at that point they were lumpers, and lumpers wasn't, they were about struggling and and protesting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't about getting involved with work and none of that stuff. And so they created a lot of problems with the party. And that's one of the reasons why they fell. Plus, in addition, they took some of the brothers, like, I'm not gonna mention no name because I don't think they would like for me to mention their name, so I'm not gonna do it. But I know all the people who they took as hostages, and put them in a room and tied them down to the chairs, with belts and ropes, and beat the shit out of them, man. I mean, that was wrong. That was wrong. So I mean, that last comment that 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 brother Joe was talking about, man, it refers to that, man. Where they say where people should get a lot. Yeah, we could get a lot from the Young Law Party. Yes, there's no doubt about that. But we need to understand, the downfalls and a lot of stuff that contributed, to to their fall. So that's all I gotta say right now.
yeah, yeah. Just before somebody else jumps on, just to follow up with that, Comrade Che, we were talking about that, and we were mentioning how they whatchamacallit, mentioned that they were down talking so many comrades at that time to where so many of them stepped away. And then when you talked about the dictatorship of it, we kind of find that playing in parts of today's time, where we have to be careful, because a lot of things that was mentioned in this book too was the COINTEL programs, and we have to definitely be aware of who we keep our surroundings with and keep our circles small. But at the same time, as I had mentioned yesterday, as being activists, when we want to include the masses, how do we ascertain what it is to keep our circle small and then grow big to influence the masses? That was another important part, especially when we have bad leadership and some indications that over a periods of times it continues to happen sometimes. Um, that's all, comment. You want to touch up on that?
You know, I hate to say it in such a way, but the thing is that's my granddaughter. uh, they were imitating a lot of the tactics that the Black Panther Party was doing at the end of the 70s and coming into the 80s. The Black Panther Party also took some hostages, some of their own hostages, and had them put them down in the cellar. They used to call it the cellar, and beat them up. Uh, so you know, I blame both parties for their mistakes. You know, I mean, that was drastic mistakes.
Right.
So
And I remember reading about in both Elaine Brown's autobiography and Aaron Dixon's, where they were discussing corporal punishment being used for,
exactly,
like, if
exactly.
there any kind of altercation or someone even so much as felt disrespected, they'd start swinging and either like busting out weapons to give people lashes, beating the hell
Yeah,
out of them, shit like that. And it's like, okay, these are things for us to learn from, because that type of shit
exactly.
would never be fucking tolerated today at
Yeah,
all.
no, this is, and it's good that it's mentioned because we learn from it. You know, I mean, we talk about man serving the people. We ain't talking about destroying them.
That's
You
a little
know,
fucking extra to think you need corporal punishment to, you know, keep people in line when they're in your party and stuff. That's ridiculous. Like, no. There's plenty of ways to address issues when it comes to whether somebody is, you know, fulfilling the parts of their role that they are there to serve, you know, in the party, or if there's personal altercation, you know, like I I forget what started it, but at one point when Elaine Brown was leading the Black Panthers, she had one of the other guys there beat the hell out of Aaron Dixon because she felt that something that he'd said was disrespectful to her. And to me, that just screamed, okay, your ego can't handle criticism. And so I'm glad that's something that we have a lot of emphasis on today is unity, criticism, unity, of going through the process of criticism and self-criticism to talk through things with fellow members of the party and be able to work through those things rather than it come into a physical altercation, you know?
yeah. You know, one of the
Brother,
things that we used to do,
yeah,
man, in
say
prison,
about yesterday.
what
Let me put you off camera. Say about yesterday when she sequestered 6 brothers and held them hostage. And it was like, to me, go ahead in your conversation, Conrad. Sorry to cut you
there
off.
were eight, six, there were eight, not six. There were eight of them.
Okay.
But anyway, basically, you know, let me give you an example, man. With in prison, when we used to chastise, you know, people, what we used to do is make them run around the yard, man, as much as they can until they can't run no more. And then we sit them in an isolated area, all by themselves, so that they could think. And if that wasn't enough, man, we put them out the party, and we let people know outside of the party that they were arch enemies. But that was it, man. We didn't put our hands on them people. You know, we didn't believe in that, and I don't believe in that. You know, so I don't know.
Right. The extra
Maybe
shit called for it.
I can't believe, man, how people call themselves revolutionaries and do that kind of shit, man.
Right. It's one of those things that, you know, just makes you wonder, like, what the fuck was anybody thinking, especially with the shit of like giving people lashes. And it's like,
Yeah.
hello, generational trauma. Can you maybe not pay that forward, motherfuckers?
And you know something, you know, I mean, we love them and all that, man, but Huey Newton had a lot of shit with him too, you
Yeah,
know, a lot of shit with him, man. That you know, I mean, for those who know, you know, but he had a lot of, but he was a brother, man. He was a good brother, man. You know, I mean, I respect him and I love him and all that. But at the very end of the party, man, he became very, he started doing all kinds of reactionary shit, man, you know, and
right.
especially with the women's, man, you know. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's the thing. We can love and respect people who came before us without condoning everything that they fucking did either, you know?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, I got the utmost love and respect for Huey too, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to question the errors that he made or human rights that were violated under his leadership, you know, and it wasn't just him, it was Elaine, it was many others in leadership there that made
Exactly,
the,
Elaine too.
you know, things
Elaine too.
out being, you know, reasonable shit of like, okay, do some push-ups, you know, turned into violence that was unnecessary and uncalled for. And like you were saying a few minutes ago, becomes dictatorial, you know?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
democratic centralism. And when you got somebody playing cult of personality shit and wanting to be dictator over the party. So yeah, there's a lot of good things for us to learn from them of what to do. There's also a lot of bad shit for us to learn from them of what not to do, because we can see how those efforts, um, rather than helping, actually hindered the movement.
Yeah, that's correct, sister, because we're what we're reading on is things that are based on from the late 60s, early 70s. And we're in 2023. So how are we going to attribute our studies from the late 60s and 1970s when so many things uh, have changed? Even just gentrification has changed within that time period. And the understandings and the concepts of different viewpoints have changed within that time. And we're talking about 50 years.
Right.
So what the studies we're studying on today, we can take and grasp from it. But like another one last point I wanted to make is like nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. But as long as we strive to continue to try to better ourselves, or as once we grow in knowledge and once we gain knowledge, to apply that knowledge to being a better person, that if you was a bad person from the beginning, it's because you didn't know no better. You was a knucklehead. But once you acquire a basic knowledge of understanding of what it is to deal with humanity and the masses, and then you continue to fuck up, well, then shame on you.
Right.
And you can only say sorry too many times. My grandpa used to say, Joe, I don't go for that too much sorry shit. Because, you can only be sorry once or twice at the most. That's all.
Right. That's one thing that I wish a lot more people understood too, is saying the words I'm sorry is merely a formal declaration of intent. The actual apology is the change in your fucking behavior. If you're not changing your behavior, you're not really sorry for the harm that you caused with those choices.
you know, like
Exactly.
like I said yesterday, man, I was chairman of the New York State prison system, young laws, and when the young laws outside, when they changed their whole concepts and changed their names, I decided along with the Central Committee of Central Committee of the prison system to not change, to remain the young laws, and a lot of things the young laws inside do not agree with a lot of policies of the young laws outside, and I think that in a lot of ways we felt isolated, man, from the young laws outside because they were doing a lot of stuff. And the thing is, when I came home, is when I really found out a lot of other shit, man. The whole hostage taking and all that, because they kept that on a download, and I came home, man, and I received some phone calls, man, from some young laws because I was hanging out with the old time young laws, the leadership of the young laws prior to the Central Committee, before they established the Central Committee. I was hanging out with Panama, I was hanging out with Richie Perez, I was hanging out with Jose Paris, and a few other people, and I had to come home to find out a lot of the garbage that the young laws had done, you know, and they started calling me. Some of my friends, young laws, they started calling me and saying, "Man, listen, this was happened, this was happened, this was happened," and I couldn't believe it, man. I couldn't believe it, but it's true. People make some mistakes. Sometimes they got to pay for those mistakes.
Right. I like, where Joe was emphasizing this a moment ago that, you don't really know unless and until you fuck up and learn from it, that everybody makes mistakes. It's what you do with that, of whether it remains a mistake or becomes a life lesson, something that spurs growth. And so at least that's one area where we can have some compassion for where everybody was coming from then, because they didn't have any previous example to follow of, a modern context socialist revolution, like the previous big one that happened prior to that would have been either, Russia or China, which both happened decades earlier. And in those decades, it's like centuries worth of shit happened as far as social change, as well as it being different locations. So it's not like they had anything of a previous example for them to learn from. They've now become the previous example for us to learn from. So, that at least
Yeah,
helps have some understanding with, the things they were going through and how they coped with it and what ways were good and what ways weren't, and it brings my thoughts back to what Aaron Dixon had to say to us a few months ago when he sat in with us after we finished reading his book. And he was telling us that, he's really proud of the younger generations for doing a better job of taking care of our mental health than they did back then.
yeah,
Because, they were working around the fucking clock and pushing themselves into complete fucking burnout.
yeah.
Everybody just being expected to do nothing but boots on the ground 24 fucking 7 and never have any time to be human. And a lot of that is what led to there being those conflicts where they were trying to resolve it with corporal punishment and shit like that. Everybody was stressed the fuck out. They were burned out, burning the candle at both fucking ends, not getting enough sleep, not having any time to just be a human being, not a human doing. And it came out in all facets because it was too high levels of anxiety and stress. There's got to be balance.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a good point, sister. And that whole things that we've been talking about throughout this whole chapter or throughout this whole book is the self critique and the self criticism, where sometimes we need to check ourselves if we are falling out of line, or within our comrades to check one another to keep us in line, because we can wayward, whether it be through financial struggles, mental struggles, or just community struggles. We kind of get overwhelmed of all the stuff that we have to deal with when we're activists across a big margin of a playing field, when there's so many things to deal with that we kind of like need to spend and take that time and spend time to ourselves to reflect on how we can be a better revolutionary. And that's all.
Well said.
Well said. That's right. No.
Yeah. That's why I think it's important to do things like what we were talking about before we started the meeting today of, getting out in nature, like Dr. Rob was saying, of spending, at least one weekend a month, just being out in nature and, experiencing that beauty, that connection, hitting that reset button, you know, um, that right there is one of the best reminders of what we're doing all of this for, so that we can actually get to the point of enjoying a dignified fucking quality of life. And part of that is being able to just do simple shit like go to the lake or go on a hike in the woods, things like that, to be able to have that time to exist that a lot of people, most people don't fucking have right now under capitalism, because they don't even get enough time off from work to catch up on all their shit at home and fucking go grocery shopping, run errands and shit over the weekend if they're lucky enough to have the weekend off. And then they're thrown right back into, you know, the rat race at work and don't have time to just be. We should have time to create music and art, to spend time in nature, to spend time with each other. Right now, we're not living, we're just fucking existing as capitalist cattle. Dr.
Yeah.
Rob, I see you turned your camera on. I'm curious if you got some thought to dispel here.
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts. And I've got to get ready and go in a minute here to get my son from piano. But I have a close buddy in my local cadre who's Jewish, and he talks a lot about the Sabbath principle and how the Sabbath should be enforced, you know, at the expense of work bosses. That sometimes the Sabbath has to be taken. The system doesn't always want to give us a. Sometimes we have to take it, however that looks. It, you know, I'm in the wilderness shouldn't just be reserved for like rich upper class people that can afford REI stuff, you know, and all the expensive camping gear. It should be available to everyone to be able to go out and live simply and walk lightly upon the earth. But in regards to the stuff for elders, this is real talk. It's really mature discourse when we can like honor our elders and at the same time, we honor them even more by being honest in our assessment. That means the person we're honoring is a real person, you know, a real faceted person that every once in a while takes a nosedive. And these are lessons learned for sure. And, you know, good reminders that we aren't worship leaders, that we're to live our lives for the people and according to principles. And it's always a little disheartening or shocking maybe to hear some things from people that you know a person's respected, but this is real shit. And one of the reasons I think that some of them went so hard back then is because, like, I've read quite a bit about the groups that the overlap with the Weathered Underground and kind of the way they did some things. And when they were living, some of them in like a wartime siege mentality. And so for them to subject themselves and each other to physical rigors, for some of them, they saw that as part of training, you know, and especially guys who've been in prison, you know, they're trying to beat everybody into shape, and they're trying to get everybody battle ready pretty much, you know, when the real shit starts popping off, the rules do change a little bit. But yeah, revolution is a process, not an event, and the big picture has to be kept in mind. A picture that transcends dogmas, any sort of hero worship, you know. So yeah, this has been a good talk, and thank you, Brother Shay, for sharing your unfiltered stories about these incredible experiences with incredibly complex, beautiful, but flawed individuals, you know.
I second that. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution as well.
I'd like to add, you know, I like what you were saying a moment ago about actually enforcing there being a Sabbath day, and things like that might have started in a religious context, but it served a purpose of like, no, you actually need some time to not work and actually just be a fucking human being. So, you know, even as an atheist and living in a secular world, I can see the value of that And that's what workers were pushing for when we got the weekend in the first fucking place with, you know, the labor movements of the early 1900s. And now that's been lost along the way in many industries where they just expect you to work all weekends and holidays and don't give a flying fuck if you have any time to just exist and to have to yourself to relax and get some rest and to actually live life. And it's pretty fucked. You know, too many people have gotten comfortable with, well, I demand this service be available on the weekends, therefore somebody else has to work on the weekends to provide me with this. And at the same time, disrespecting those people working in service industries. And it's like, what the fuck are we even doing? No, there should be, you know, certain things where it's like, okay, we as a community accept that everybody's going to take a fucking sabbatical on the weekends, you know, like we can shorten the workday during the week enough that you can get to the grocery store after work and run your errands after work and whatnot, and everybody be able to take the weekend off and fully take the weekend off, not have the weekend be just when you catch up on work at home of running errands and doing shit, but to actually have the time off. There's no excuse for such exploitative hours. You know, I mean, hell, even the 40-hour work week is to the point of ridiculous. At this point, you know, that doesn't really leave you enough time to have time with your family, time with your friends, and still get a full night's sleep. But what's really horrendous is the sheer number of people I know who are stuck working 12-hour shifts or 14-hour shifts or 16-hour shifts 5 or 6 days a week. And the companies they work for actually being allowed to mandate that kind of hours where it's not voluntary overtime. It's suck it up and show up and work till you're ready to drop over fucking dead and go home and not have enough time to even get a full night's rest before you have to be back and do it all over again, or fuck you, you won't have a job.
You know, you sound like, you know, like me, man. When my last job as an alcoholic counselor, you know, sometimes I go in at 8 o'clock in the morning and close to 9 o'clock at night, I'm still running groups.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, man. You know, then I go home and people call me, some clients, they wasn't supposed to know my number, but being that I come from, you know, I always try to relate to my clients and let them know that where you've been, I've been. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
you know, I mean, I was an alcoholic, I was a drug addict also, you know. So I understand, you know, in working with that population, I understood that, you know. So I used to give some of the clients my number, and they would call me at night and talk to me, just practically all fucking night. I said, listen, man, let me go. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow at the job. You're okay. Take care. No, it was crazy. And just here now, man, I'm in Dominican Republic. I'm supposed to be relaxing. You know, I'm supposed to be enjoying myself, supposed to go fishing as I was supposed to have went, never went. I pass my time most of the day, most of the time now I pass it, you know, when I'm not on the computer, you know, exploring, you know, and reading some books on the computer. If I'm not doing that, I'm reading some books outside of the computer. Yeah, I spend my, and people tell me, man, you know, my stepdaughter, man, she tells me, why don't you get out there and room, man? Why don't you go for a walk, man? I said, no, that's okay, man. I'm good, man. You know, and I'll be here reading a book. I read one book, I finish one book, I read another one. You know, that's where I send you that information today. The killers of the what was that? Killers of oh God, I forgot. The killers of what was the name of the killers of I get it, man. I got it right here. Can't forget it. The killers of the flower moon.
Oh, we were
Killers of
talking
the
about
flower
that before.
moon. Yeah. I was exploring that today, and I think I sent it to Sally too, man. You know, so that you can check it out, man, because it's definitely, man. I went to YouTube and I seen a clip of it, man, and it talked about the whole history of the killers of the flower moon. You know how they kill those Sagi tribes in Oklahoma, man. That was weird, man. That was weird. But I'm gonna try to see if I can get on YouTube if I can get the whole movie. I don't know if they got it, but I'm gonna find out.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
tried looking it up after we talked about it this morning, and it looks like it's still in theaters, but I'll keep my eyes open for it. You know, when it's out of theaters and starting to stream, maybe we can do a movie night and put that one together.
yeah, because that's wow, that's a very sad story, man. Very sad. But hey, the massacre of Native Americans is a sad story. So, I don't know.
It's just sad that there's so many fucking examples of it like that a lot of people don't even know about because we don't fucking learn real history in our history classes. It's all whitewashed bullshit,
I
and
know, I
you
know.
know they don't want to
I,
fucking teach students the reality.
I was looking at, you know what I was looking at today? I was checking out the Mexican map of 1300. Do you know that Mexico, I don't know if that's the proper name for it, Mexico was much larger than the United States.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I couldn't believe it. I was looking at it, I said, oh shit. United States did a hell of a job of Mexican people, man. I mean, Louisiana, Texas, California, they just really took it away.
yep. If I remember right, all of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Utah,
Colorado, yeah, all that was
all
Mexican.
that was still part of Mexico then. And
Yeah,
it's like, okay, people want to bitch about the border, the border, the border. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? People aren't crossing the border crossed them.
that's
Okay?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there was also parts of Nevada
Oh,
and Utah
Nevada
and
too. Yeah,
Wyoming
and
also.
Wyoming.
So
Yeah.
it reached Aslan reached that far once upon a time.
It was about
We're
good
still here.
8 states that
Yeah,
that that the United States took over. 78
yes.
that belonged to Mexico.
And prior to that, with the Spaniard War, they took on Florida and all our Taino brothers.
Oh yeah,
Prior
I
to that.
forgot. I forgot about Florida too.
Did you guys mention California? Because California was
Oh,
definitely part of Aztlan.
excuse me, I did forget California. I try to get the rest of the states, but California also, all the way up
Just
into at the tip of California, because actually, in today's times and in historical times, we didn't really see Oregon involved in that. So it went up to Alta California, that what they called it back in those days, and in Colorado, it didn't touch all of Colorado, but
moved over to go around you.
yeah. And so I think they separated it through waterways and whatnot and mountain regions to be inclusive of areas that were part. But one of the statehoods that actually claimed their land rights was New Mexico with Reyes Lopez Tijerina and the struggle he was fighting for land back, and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which was a treaty that was supposed to be indefinitely, but until they found mineral rights, then it wasn't indefinitely. and until cattle came in and all the other, and oil was found and gold was found, then they took upon themselves to steal our land rights. That's all.
Really fucked how that always plays out in that manner of if any kind of mineral sources or crude oil or anything are discovered on indigenous lands, that res land is then yanked because the state's like, oh fuck, we didn't mean to let you have control over resources, got to steal that back from you. Excuse us, just scooching on through here with some eminent domain bullshit.
They're still doing it with lithium mines and whatnot in a lot of our indigenous areas throughout Arizona and New Mexico and up into Nevada. So it's like it's an ongoing thing. It hasn't ended. And there's still a lot of people fighting for that. Like in OFAX, Arizona, where the Apaches are trying to make a strength and a stronghold and attention and awareness to what is going on there, because it's not the mine that gets just the mine. It's also the trucks where all that dust goes from the earth.
Yeah, we lost Joe.
Oh,
Oh.
good, because I thought that was me. I was like, oh my God.
No, I
That was gonna happen, man, because you was fading away.
Oh, there he is. He's
Um,
back. Welcome
so,
back.
Welcome home.
as far as I understand it, this includes the lithium mining at Thacker Pass,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I know some of the people who protested out there too when that shit first started and, tried to hold the line even through winter to stop them from coming in and beginning the mining and whatnot. And it's just, it's fucked that shit's even allowed, especially when, okay, they're mining all this lithium for massive batteries to go with like solar arrays and whatnot. There's better fucking ways to address that. We would have higher capacity batteries if we were making them with hemp, and they would be a renewable resource that actually cleans the soil instead of fucking contaminating it to go that path, make hemp batteries instead. So why the fuck they're still doing shit like mining lithium when we've had the tech to switch over to hemp batteries for years now? It fucking angers me to my core because they're disrespecting the shit out of the planet and destroying the soil, destroying the water supplies with the fucking contaminants from mining lithium. And it's not the only one, like there's other shit they mine that's toxic as fuck too, like nickel and cadmium and whatnot to make these batteries with. That's completely fucking unnecessary. Why keep doing that when we can make hemp batteries that don't have the explosion risk that lithium batteries have and that don't fucking produce toxins and that would be a renewable fucking resource? What the fuck? Go ahead, Sean. I see you got your hand up.
I was also gonna say, like, shit. I had a really good point while I was listening. Give me a second. Not only are we doing all these destructive practices, and like hemp batteries really are a good way around it. Fuck, I completely lost my point. I am so sorry. Continue.
It happened.
Oh, I was going to share also that Henry Ford had created where they didn't really have to use U.S. steel to make the metal. They could have made the Model A's and Model T's out of hemp, even the chassis and the surrounding metal of the doors and and whatnot and stuff like that. It could have all been created by hemp and ran by hemp, but it
Yep.
wasn't until the steel industries and also the oil industries just shot him down on that, and it was all those little capitalist motherfuckers that we talk about. That's all.
He had actually built at least the first few that were designed like that, completely out of hemp. And if I remember right, I think they ran on hemp oil too. And yeah, they said got fucking shut down by other industries who were like, but wait a minute, this'll put us out of business because you made something better than what we can. We've got to fucking bribe politicians to shut you down. It's like,
Okay,
what the fuck?
I
Go
remember
ahead.
what I was gonna say. So every time one is in discourse about like getting better wages for the proletariat and whatnot, somebody invariably always says, but the capitalists put in the money to start the business and blah blah blah. Well, why don't these motherfuckers actually go ahead and put down the money for the hemp batteries and hempcrete and all the wonderful something like 100 different fucking uses for hemp, when they know that this is extractive technology is not going to be sustainable for much longer than 20-30 years tops.
Because they want to squeeze every fucking penny out of that they can before they have to switch to something else in order to fucking have something employed. That's why they don't fucking care how much damage it does to the environment. They want to fully tap every fucking one of those resources till it is decimated and being pushed into non-existence before they consider any fucking thing else. A lot of this, it's been going on forever. Like even when hemp first got banned, right along with marijuana, there's two causes for that. Number one, racism, and number two, other capitalist industries, paper industry wanting to shut down the hemp industry because hemp can also be used to make paper that would have been far more renewable and far less expensive than making paper from trees and would have saved our fucking forests. But no, the paper industry was allowed to lobby against hemp and actually get it fucking made illegal because they didn't want the threat to the fucking paper industry from harvesting wood. It's really all that kind of lobbying that needs to be fucking banned. It's nothing but legalized bribery. But to answer your question, as far as people trying to invest in it, sadly, at this point, there's only a few small companies across the country that are already making hempcrete and using that for their construction project, things like that, because there's still not been enough growth in that industry, even though now that the bans have been lifted in many states and people have started to farm hemp because they were anticipating there being a large call for hemp materials, not just for the CBD nugs that you can smoke for pain relief, but being able to use the rest of the plant matter to make paper, to make fiber for clothing, to be able to make hempcrete, the whole fucking 9 yards. And they had more supply than there was demand for because there's only a couple of companies so far that are even making use of hempcrete or hemp paper, etc. It definitely needs to see, some growth in that vicinity so that way people can actually start to see the benefits of using hemp for all of these things and let the industry move in that direction and away from all the toxic shit that we're using instead. But, we've got to do something to actually wake people the fuck up that a lot of the things that we are doing just to have unsustainable fucking resources is just destroying the planet. You know, why keep cutting down fucking wood to build houses with when you can build them with hempcrete that literally turns to stone? It's so solid and it actually wicks moisture away. So you don't have to worry about ever getting mold in your walls or any of the other shit that we deal with because of using cheap fucking composite board, stuff like that. Like the building materials that we can make from hemp are far more high quality than anything we're making right now.
You know, you said something about something that really struck me. You know, you said something about, you know, how people, the capitalists, how they destroy trees in order to make houses, etc. You know, right here in the Dominican Republic, you know how they make houses? They don't make them out of trees. They make them out of cement.
Hell yeah.
That's
Holds
cement.
up.
That's how they. Yeah. So if there's a fire, the building, the house is not going to be on fire. It has to be internally for it to be on fire, you
Right.
know. And so the house is safe, you know. And if the United States had any brains, you know, they will be doing that too. But they don't have no brains, you
Shit.
know.
You're
But
lucky if you can get a house built with brick here, and even then you're gonna pay a lot of money for it in comparison to one that's just stick built with like regular siding and shit.
yeah,
I was
well, we live now. Where I live now, right here, you know, we pay. You know how much rent we pay? We pay $200, $200 a month. But $200 a month in terms of pesos is 10,000 pesos. You know, but it's $200. So and it's very cozy. Very, we have a yard and we have 3 rooms and it's very large. You know, and it's comfortable. You know, and we don't have to worry about a fire, you know, unless we cause it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna go back to when the United States did that wage. They propagandaed movies like Reefer Madness and whatnot back in the early 20s to say people were crazed that smoked weed, and they made certain laws. And this is according to my knowledge. I'm not sure when Coca-Cola stopped using cocaine in their Coca-Cola drink. Um, but they started making all these drugs, class A or B drugs, to where they were illegal. And this happened because of the hemp, predominantly because of the hemp. Because prior to that, all the way from the 16, 17, 1800s, all the ropes were made out of hemp.
Yeah.
Because they were the strongest fiber to be intertwined. And then I was just wanted to bring out to the point where the United States made that war on drugs. And again, Reagan did it again with the war on drug in the 80s, where people that would caught with a little dime of crack did 20 years or some shit like this, some ridiculous number of years for just a little possession charge. Um, it was just one way of the government keeping us down. And they did it with all these drugs. And now they're doing it. Now we can see it with the opioid crisis that is so prevalent at this time. And these are all pharmaceutical drugs that are not plant-based or anything of that nature. And that's all.
You know, incarceration, you know, the war on drugs and all that, that was a beginning stage for the to expand the exploitation. Because remember, prisons is not but a camp, it's a slave camp, you know, where labor is free, you know. I mean, regardless what did they say, you know, you get paid 20 cents or you get paid $2 per cent, You know, regardless of that, you know, Attica is an example, man. We worked in the metal shop and we were, as a matter of fact, not even Attica, Auburn Prison. They made license plates. All the license plates you see in the streets, they were made from prisons. You know, all the
Right.
cabinets that you see in the hospitals and bed cabinets and all that, they were made in in prisons. You know, so that was for that was only to extend, you know, the exploitation of labor. You know, so they knew that what they were doing. They called it they called it the war on drugs, but it was the beginning of super exploitation. That's what it was.
Yeah, and it affected our communities, our lower income communities the worst, because we automatically became targets for such
Yeah,
arrest. So it didn't happen in middle suburbia. It happened right in our barrios, in our neighborhoods, and our reservations, because they
yeah.
specifically targeted and infiltrated us with such extracurricular activities. To how would it have been made possible to us? Because none of my homies, none of my older homies knew anything about, even when they started cooking crack, making rock. That all that shit was brought down and taught down, and it really infected our neighborhoods back in the 80s. That's what I could talk about. Um, it was a plague, just like the opioid crisis is today. And how long are we going to allow them to keep? What's it going to be next week? Another different pill, another magic pill, because now they got all synthesized to where they did make everything synthetic. Um, so like, what is it now? It's not even homeopathic like the drug in the past. Not, I mean, and there was LSD and stuff like that that was man-made also. After what you call it, with Hitler and stuff like that, and the Nazis, where they were feeding that to the soldiers, and speed, methamphetamine, where they were feeding it to the soldiers to fight on and can stay awake a little bit longer, and then be like kamikaze Nazi motherfuckers that didn't really give a fuck, that they were so loaded, and the their governments kept the soldiers loaded so that they could just keep on fighting. And I think they do that to us in our communities now, because now people are over here fighting over a nickel and a dime, killing each other for like $5. It's scandalous. That's all. Well, I think I'm gonna
Just
have to
keep in
leave
mind.
because I have a meeting to go on to, comrades.
That's okay, comrade. We're coming up close on 2 hours here, so we'll be wrapping up pretty soon anyhow.
Okay, I'm gonna jump off this, but comrade Che, it's always nice to hear your plática and your story and your history. It inspires us to keep on going. But I always say, how can we learn from the past and then bring it into the present? And that's what's so I'm so grateful and honored to be on these study groups, because it helps me relate it in today's times.
Well, it's an
And
honor
that's
also
all.
to have you, because just as much as I learned that you learn from me, I learn from you. We learn from each other. You know, that's why we here, man, in this book reading, so that we can learn and teach each other. You know,
All power. That's right.
all power. That's right. All power to the people. You know, we learn from each other, man.
All right, comrades, let me jump on that meeting with Colorado. And we're writing a children's book. So we're gonna study about that. And then we're also doing an event for Dia de los Muertos. And we're working on that. So I got to jump in that meeting. We've kind of been planning it for like a whole week, but sometimes people's schedules don't always meet up. But anyway, all
What is
love,
that?
all
What is
revolutionary
that
love.
Dia de los Muertos?
Dia de los Muertos is an honoring of our past ancestors.
Oh, okay.
And almost kind of like with the Taino comrade brothers and sisters with Santeria to
Yeah,
an extent. Not that into religion or into hocus pocus shit. It's just an honor and a respect of our ancestors that have gone before us
exactly,
and
exactly,
how they molded us to be what we are today, so we can
exactly.
teach the younger generations to not forget the oracle stories and the personal teachings from what it is to be a humanitarian. Like, damn, just be a normal person. Damn, it doesn't take a lot of work. It takes heart.
Yeah, you know something, I'm an atheist, but the thing is that I believe, man, you know, if a person is religious, you know, they should, you know, they should do what they're supposed to. You know, one of their responsibility is to be is to fight for justice. You know, because a lot of Christians and a lot of early Christians, that's what they fought for, justice. You know, so
Yeah,
if you know if you know, I mean, when you look at Jesus as an example, Jesus always was for the poor. He wasn't for the rich. I ain't never heard him talk about the rich. I saw him talk. I see when he talked about the poor. You see, and I'm pretty sure that in his era, he was fighting as well for the poor. You know, so Christians today, you know, if they're true Christians, they should be fighting out there, man. You know, like we fighting. You know, so I mean, I don't have nothing against religion as long as you know as they doing they what they supposed to be doing, you know, and
yeah.
that's looking
I
out.
think, comrade brother, it's more than just because I don't refer to things as a religion. I think it's more of a spiritual thing. And I think if we go back and study our past as indigenous peoples, prior to any religion, whether it be any even concept of religion, it was all a communal thing. So I think that makes us all communists.
Yeah, and that's true. We were communists, you know, but we were communists in a real kind of way because everything that we own the community, you know, we share with each other,
Exactly.
you know, and you know, everything was it's not mine, it's ours. There was no such thing as mine.
Right.
That came along with capitalism, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? But it's ours and we. It wasn't you or me, it's we. You know, yeah, so you're right, man. You know, like our ancestors were very spiritual people, you know, and I think that we need to, you know, take some time to recognize,
Research it and
remember them,
recognize. Yeah.
you know, and pay our respects to them, man, because if it wasn't for them, we won't be here.
Exactly. Because we are only a reflection of our past. We it doesn't matter how many times we can shine up our boots, but if you come from a tainted past or a tainted ancestry, well then you tainted. I don't care how much you scrub that boot, it's still not going to be shiny.
And
You
that's
dog.
what I say also about the young laws. Their past mistakes is our future success.
They learn, yeah, exactly. Learning experiences, but not just within the Young Lords, but all our organizations as a
All of them.
collective whole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Their
anyway,
failures is our success.
all right, comrades. Well, I'm gonna have to jump off and one love, and then I'll see y'all. Well, I could try to jump on tomorrow. I think I have an easy day tomorrow. Um, so I'll see y'all tomorrow for Wretched of the Earth, and always, always a pleasure to share equal time and space with y'all.
We start Richard of the oh yeah,
It's
that's
always
right.
a learning experience. Yo, it's on Tuesdays.
Is that what time?
Uh,
2 o'clock?
We wrapped up at
comrades in.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we wrapped up Wretched of the Earth a couple weeks ago. We're reading Seize the Time on Tuesdays now.
Oh,
That'll
yes.
be at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so 5 p.m. Pacific. And I'll touch base with you guys in the group chat for that one too.
So you
Oh,
say 7
thank you.
o'clock, huh?
Yeah.
So seven, that time is 4 p.m. California time. So I have to take that into consideration, or Seattle time, should I say?
You know what? You're right. I fucked up there saying 5 p.m. Eastern. It's
Oh, I
4
just wanted to clarify. Yeah.
Pacific.
Okay.
Geez, my brain is not fucking operating on all cylinders right now.
No, we
But
do so much. And I think we kind of mentioned this earlier. Or if not, I mentioned in a conversation I had with someone else earlier. We have to balance our time, and we have to take time to ourselves, because as much as we dedicate into the movement and to our causes, um, we have to have that. Like the Dr. Robert was saying, like have that natural and outdoors type. And sometimes it's easier than what we think. It could just be like a 10-minute walk from our door that we get into some kind of secluded natural area. Not even that far. Even in concrete jungles, there's always big parks and stuff, or whatever the case may be. So let us all keep our energy lit, and stay focused, and shine bright like a diamond. They say, like the girl said on the song. All right then. All right then. One love, comrades. Let me get on this meeting because it's kind of important.
okay. Have a
All right.
good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Hasta mañana.
Sean, I see you got your hand up. Go ahead, hon.
Well, so Joe was mentioning something about you know, if you got a bad past or whatever, like you can't wash off that stank essentially. That is exactly the same mentality that enabled the Dalit classes in India. They are historically they were considered, the poop picker uppers and the gutter cleaners and all of that. And if you were born into that caste, you did not associate outside of that caste. You could not wash it off. You could not change it. Um, I only bring it up because, slightly dangerous rhetoric, but I know Joe knows better than that. It just
Yeah.
popped into my head is all. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, maybe we can ask him about that one later of like, were you pointing that out as something we need to fight against? Because that sounds like something we need to fight against. Because the caste bullshit is just another form of classism that is nothing but fucking oppression.
Exactly. And and as a matter of fact, the caste system in India, in the very bottom of the caste system, the Dalits, their name literally means broken. So
Man,
put two and two together.
that's out fucking cold.
Wow.
As always, you've got, some wealth of knowledge there about this shit that's like, whoa, wait a fucking minute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of books on the Dalits part of the caste system, the Dalit Panthers. We should definitely check out the Dalit Panthers too, because there's actually if you look at the way that the elites are treated compared to indigenous Africans and indigenous African diasporans, they're treated the exact same way. They just make it, the bourgeois system just makes it seem like they're treated way more better than us, which is not the case at all. Because if you look at Mahatma Gandhi, when he came, because he's from the very top of the caste system, the very, very tip. When he came to so-called South Africa, to the land of the Zulu people and the Xhosa people, he literally was saying every anti-African racist thing in the book about those people and about us in general. So,
Wow.
like he's revered, but he's a pedophile. He hates African people and he hates Dalits, but he's this amazing and leader towards independence of India, which is literally not the case if you're from top of the caste hierarchy and literally having this much vitriol against us and the Dalits. Like hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, we haven't it.
Yeah, it's pretty fuck. It's another example of like the cult of personality bullshit, where people are actively ignoring the very unethical issues with the shit that he's said and done, just because he's in some favored position. And it's like, wait a minute, nobody is above criticism. Get the
No
fuck
one.
out of here.
I meant
Like,
to
for
ask
real.
Shanti, did you say that Muhammad Gandhi was a racist?
Yeah, he was.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
A lot of people
hated
don't know
blacks?
that.
He hated blacks?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's
I didn't-
documented. It's
I didn't know-
documented.
I didn't know that, man.
Look it up. Look it up. It's all there. He said it out of his
No, I
own
will.
mouth.
I mean, I believe you. I believe you. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
that information that never crossed my path.
We're having a good
Maybe
fucking
wasn't
Yeah.
time,
meant to
and
cross
then
my
all of a
path.
sudden it's fucking hypey again.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few references to it in the last few years, and it's like, holy shit, how is this person a fucking quote unquote spiritual leader?
Because
But
a lot of people don't know. That's the point.
well, there's also the factor that even if they do, some of them probably agree with them. I mean, look at how many fucking bigots are spiritual leaders amongst the evangelical Christian groups and shit like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
Just put two and two together here, y'all. Like they're all interlinked.
Wow.
Yep. It's
Well,
like,
I hope
gee,
I hope nothing comes out from that Buddha was a racist.
Yep.
well, not that I'm aware of, but you never fucking know.
Hey, you never know until it happens.
Yep.
Buddha was also so far back in history, who knows, there might not be any documentation on that. But, even with like those who are leaders in Buddhism today, you never know. Like there's some really good ones who I listen to because I do enjoy Dhamma talks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's been a few that I've seen in the news getting called out for other forms of bigotry, like sexism, homophobia. So, I mean, nobody is perfect or above criticism,
That's
regardless
No one.
of their placement in society. Matter of
Yep.
fact, when you're in one of those positions of power, you are subject to greater criticism. You should be held to a higher level of accountability simply for your capacity to sway people because of your fucking position.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very true. And it goes back to what we talked about the young laws too. You know?
Indeed. Indeed. And I mean, that's part of why our parties today practice unity, criticism, unity. And it's because we have to hold ourselves to a higher fucking standard, because we're the ones that everybody's looking at when it comes to, putting boots on the ground and trying to, show people how to survive in these fucking extremely fucked political and economic times. And if we're caught fucking slipping and fucking up and doing unethical shit, that's not just gonna, reflect on whatever individual it is doing that. It's gonna reflect on the whole fucking movement.
Exactly. Because we already got enough people, trying to, repress all of us. So, it's definitely important that we don't cross certain lines. There's a certain line that you don't cross. And if you cross that line, then it's going to taint what you're trying to do. And like you're already back to square one because like it's there's no kind of system to kind of reel you back in because you have a lot because like you said you have people that are looking at you you know expecting that trust that you do care about them, that you are trying to liberate their lives, that you aren't trying to liberate us overall. And like if there's no system of trust of mass mind to be able to listen to them and be able to make it revolutionary and build that trust with them, and then going to the theory stage and organizing them, putting in more of those revolutionary seeds, then you're screwed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. But it's literally like a requirement at this point to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Right.
It has
Like
to be.
it has to be because like that's a Maoist principle, self critique. You cannot be revolutionary if you don't know how to critique yourself.
Yep. Accountability fucking matters. Accountability is one of the
Yeah.
biggest things that is lacking in the current system that we are trying to fucking dissolve in order to replace it with something that actually does work. A big facet of that has to start with accountability. It doesn't fucking matter what position you are in. You must be accountable to and answer to the people, period. Plain and fucking simple. Because the second that you are allowed to not answer to the people you're supposed to be serving is the moment that opportunism comes to the fucking table and people exploit the fuck out of their positions for their own personal gain and fuck over the people who put them in that position. We've had enough of that.
We've had enough of that. We had enough of that. And look at what happened with Gloria. Look at what happened with the Young Lords Party when Gloria decided to go all CIA. That's what we don't want.
Yep.
Because it does not help anyone. It doesn't help anyone to be unhealthily paranoid. It's one thing to be hyper aware. It's another thing to be full-blown paranoid to the point where you're literally just attacking every damn body and torturing 5-8 people in some room and torturing them, thinking that you're freeing your community that way. Is not that. It's not that. It's not that. And you see a lot of collectives, like I said today, that do not have that Maoist principle. And that's why they fall apart. That's why they get called out so many times, why they get exposed, why they fall apart, because there's no system of principle. There's no principle that has been developed correctly or none at all. And it festers into opportunism, into lateral harm and violence within the collective, within the group, and it implodes. So that's why we need to have that Maoist foundation, because if we don't have that, then we're literally going to implode, not knowing what the hell we're doing.
Right. that part. Yeah, I mean, we can see it now for ourselves because hindsight's fucking 2020. That, you know, every time that shit didn't get nipped in the bud when the original Young Lords were going through it, when the original Panthers were going through it, every fucking time it led to disarray, to divisions within the party, to COINTELPRO getting the fucking opportunity to, you know, cause a breakdown in the parties themselves and render them fucking politically impotent, you know?
Right.
So we have to be very mindful of that and, you know, actually make use of the things that we have learned from Mao and how to actually find unity with the rest of the masses, you know, because I mean, he didn't fucking preach dogmatic fucking purity of ideology. He preached meet people where the fuck they're at and, you know, to actually be able to open minds and be able to have a positive influence there. You don't do that if you're incapable of having as simple a fucking adult conversation as criticism and self-criticism to be able to have that fucking accountability.
Right. And another thing, education, as revolutionaries as the late great Thomas Sankara said, we don't get the right to not educate anyone for any reason, because it's about planting those seeds for those people that we're trying to liberate to have that revolutionary breakthrough. Like, if you're calling yourself a revolutionary, then you have to educate no matter what, because you're putting out those seeds out in the open for them to eventually have their revolutionary breakthrough, and then they can start kind of following your plight, the struggle. Like, we don't get the right to not educate.
Right.
And this is how you know that these people, many of these people, don't actually know what the hell they're reading. They don't know what the hell to put into practice because it's been so co-opted and so capitalized, especially as we've seen in the past 3 years, that they just read a Fred Hampton quote and immediately they're a Maoist. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You cannot be a reactionary and you cannot be a revolutionary and be reactionary. It doesn't work that way. That's why we have political education. That's why we need these systems so that they know what the hell they're doing, so that they can be able to see more clearly and be able to serve the people, to meet the people where they're at, towards a vanguard front that can eventually get us to the next stage, because we're in autopilot right now. Like I've said, we're on autopilot and we cannot stay in autopilot because it's not working. It did not work for many years, and clearly it's not working now and never will. So we
Right.
need these systems to be able to reel us back, to have a scientific dialectical materialist analysis of our reality, of our conditions, how we ended up here, and what do we do about it. Because we cannot be reactionary and think it's going to do anything. We cannot use our culture and think that's going to do anything. We cannot be cultural nationalists because we confuse culture with theory and practice. Culture alone cannot liberate anyone. I don't care what you say. Culture alone is not going to free you. I am sorry. I am
Right.
sorry. It's not. It's not. That's what these people need to know, because they don't know what the hell they're doing.
That's
Well,
what you call scientific socialism. That's what you call scientific thinking, man.
Yeah.
Right. it's one of those things that's really important to take note of, because while cultural revolution does need to take place, it takes more than that.
Yeah. Like, we can't just have a cultural revolution and, call it a day. No, it's like, until capitalism is completely like done for, because even in a socialist world there will still be remnants of capitalism that we still need to get rid of. We cannot just stop in the middle and just go on with our lives. No, until capitalism is actually like done for, we still need to fight. Like, we cannot just have a cultural revolution and call it a day. It doesn't work that way.
Well, especially when the things are tied in inherently to each other. That, okay, how can you end cultural facets of oppression that are absolutely at their basis fucking linked to your proximity to capital, and that capital is being used as another form of exploiting and oppressing you as a marginalized fucking class. Like, they're far too intertwined to be able to only address one and not the other, so
Right.
like, my argument here for going against the cultural nationalists is no different than my argument against fucking fat socks that are basically Nazis and communist fucking attire. They want to pretend to be commies, but they're really fucking Nazis. And they think the opposite, that they can just do the addressing of capitalism without there being any cultural revolution, because they don't give a fuck. They're perfectly content still oppressing and exploiting women, people of color, LGBTQ, you fucking name it. They want just a financial revolution to benefit their white male wallets. And it's like
a financial revolution. That's essentially what it is. A financial revolution. Yeah.
And like, you can't actually dismantle capitalism without dismantling all of the other facets of racism and sexism and homophobia that uphold it. And on the flip side of that, with the cultural nationalists, you can't only address identity issues. Then you slip into shit livery of identity politics that are illegitimate, instead of acknowledging intersectional politics that are legitimate.
Right. And that is exactly why we need proletarian feminism, because so-called intersectionality does not deal with the problem. It treats the secondary contradictions of capitalism, like racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, etc., as like different, inherently fixed in the individual social phenomena that happen to have a connection to each other, even though it clearly came from the same system, from the bourgeoisie. Like,
right,
we cannot think that these things are separate. No, we have to deal with them as a whole, because where else did it come from?
Right.
Where else did it come from?
Like, there's separated.
Yeah, like there's literally whole books from the foreign language press on this. Like, I didn't even know about proletariat feminism until Esperanza, who's an amazing Marxist Leninist Maoist Chicana trans woman whom I follow, who I love to death. She talks about this. That like, these things are not separate. They are all together. They all came from essentially at the same time. And once again, these are secondary contradictions that also have primary contradictions within it. Like racism with racialism, caste, the caste system, mestizaje, Latinidad, all that stuff. Like, it came from the bourgeoisie. It came from you know, the European bourgeoisie. Like, we cannot just think that these are separate things. No, we have
Right.
to put a scientific dialectical analysis to it and really confront the why, because intersectionality, it won't do that.
Well, identity politics won't. Intersectionality does help. Intersectionality at least acknowledges that
Yeah,
all things are interlinked and that you can't address one without addressing all of them. Which brings my
exactly.
back to Sister Bell Hooks in her book Killing Rage, Ending Racism.
My book.
Turned it fucking perfectly to encapsulate this idea that none of these things can be fucking separated because they're all inherent to each other, in deeming this system sexist, racist, capitalist, patriarchy. It's
Yeah,
all one fucking thing.
it's all one thing. And just like the late great amazing Audre Lorde have said herself, my mother, my revolutionary mother, she has said herself that there is no hierarchy of oppressions. She faces the same oppressions, being a lesbian, being Black, and being a woman.
Yep.
Like it's literally the same. It's literally the same oppression that is automatically interlinked. You know, and you know she's also Grenadian and Barbadian, so it's that global South aspect that plays a big role in this here too. Like Audre Lorde said it herself too. Like, there's no kind of hierarchy. There's no kind of, you know, inherent, you know, phenomenons going on, because even with privilege, it's a timetable. You know, the moment that you're no longer, you know, physically, socially, economically, and politically exploitable by the bourgeois system, you become just like everyone else. That's literally what happened in Chicago with, you know, the Irish and Scottish Appalachian migrants coming up and being treated the exact same way as the new Africans that were already here for like at least 50, 60 years. So, like, there's no hierarchy of oppression going on. It's literally the same. They just make it seem like other people are being treated way more better than African people, which is not the case.
It's one of those things that, again, back to Bell Hooks. She pointed out, you know, this is definitely not a verbatim quote or anything, but she pointed
Yeah,
out that she doesn't have the privilege of only addressing racism when she also has to confront sexism when she's a woman, and vice versa, you
right.
know? And hell, like, I feel that, you know, like the oppression that I've dealt with for being a woman is no different than the oppression that I've dealt with for being bisexual, is no different than the oppression that I've dealt with from Nazis who were trying to fucking hunt me down and kill me for being Jewish while helping their abused wives escape them. You know, it's all fucking tied together. You know, like in that case, the shit I dealt with, it wasn't just that I was helping their wives escape them. It wasn't just that I was Jewish. It was also that I was a woman that they felt fucking entitled to come at me in such a fucking stupid manner and think they're gonna fucking step foot on my doorstep and threaten my life.
Exactly.
You
Right.
know,
You cannot
like
separate it.
these things are all fucking interlinked.
Right. That's what we need to confront it that way, with a strong, principled class analysis, because we cannot analyze these things off face value with off face value. We have to really, 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 really think about it. Really, really think about it. Really analyze it. Really dissect it. Go into the bread and butter of, you know, the historical conditions that led us up to the now. How do we confront it? And that's what we need to do.
With a soft voice and a big dick. Maybe not such a soft voice. Fuck notes. I got a big mouth and a big stick. That's what I confront these things with. Figuratively and literally. Sometimes big stick go boom, but we'll leave that the fuck alone. Um, yeah. It speaks volumes to how multifaceted the oppression is, and it is. Excuse me. It is literally violence that is being used against us in all of these fucking manners of oppression. Therefore, whatever our response to that be, whether it be with a bat or a stick that goes boom, or any other fucking means necessary, that
Yep.
our actions in response are self-defense.
Yes. Yes.
There's only so much fucking oppression you can fucking tolerate before you snap.
Before you eventually snap. And we're literally snapping right now. We're losing our lives and our minds.
Everybody is. Because look, we done lost our fucking homes. We've lost our fucking bullshit ass credit that they use to determine if you can even pay extra to fucking rent a place, let alone fucking get a mortgage
Our
to buy.
livelihood.
We've lost our fucking living wages decades ago because that shit stopped keeping up with inflation and cost of living back in like the late 60s, early 70s. Get the fuck out of here. Like, my generation has never known what it means to have a living wage that you can actually survive on, and I'm sure yours never has either, Shanti.
Yeah.
And hell,
It's a
they
fact.
few people of your generation even got to experience living wages because
Yeah.
it was already fucking crumbling by the time y'all were coming into adulthood.
Yeah. That's a fact.
When we have lost every fucking thing except our will to live, what the fuck does the system think we're gonna do? Sit by idly and go, yeah, sure, thanks for the pittance ass fucking job that makes it possible for me to sometimes afford to eat while living in my vehicle. Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here. And college students are facing that too. Like Clark Atlanta, HBCU literally had a whole problem with terrible flooding in the student dorms and literally made their students lumpenized. So I'm telling you, this is literally like a ticking time bomb.
Huh?
Like, we cannot think this is okay. This is not okay. It is not okay. They killed Malcolm. They killed Martin. They killed Fred. They killed Marsha. They killed Sylvia. Like, they killed our integral peoples for the times. And like, it's led us up to this moment to where we don't even know, like where do we even go? Where do we even go? And there's so many people that are steadily becoming more revolutionary because they now start to see that they were the target this entire time. They were next. I mean, look at the Attica uprising. They killed 10 guards because those guards had a breakthrough.
Yeah.
So no one is safe.
Right.
And they're going to eventually have their breakthrough in very, very soon. Very, very soon, because you cannot go 60, 70, 80 years of your life and thinking that it's okay. No, it is not okay. It is not okay. Like, you lived through the AIDS crisis, you lived through the crack crisis, and you still think that life is, being okay, even though you have struggles in your life. You still think that, it's okay. It's not. And it's not. You've seen what they did to my community, especially here in Chicago. You've seen what they did. My neighbors literally being strung out on a vial of poison on the street, like zombies, like thin, thin zombies on the ground. That is what the bourgeois caused. That is what they did. And you think that this is okay. It is not.
No.
It is not. And eventually you're going to start believing that it's not. And you made a big mistake thinking that, we're making progress when we're not. We're not. We're not. You're just on autopilot. It's the autopilot. It's the autopilot talking.
We are not okay.
We're not. We're not. We're not.
We
And I
really
want us to start saying that we're
even,
not.
even when we get rid of the system, because we still got capitalists that are gonna be, like you said, there's still gonna be some capitalists around, and until we get our system in order, they're gonna also be, they're gonna be some not revolutionaries, kind of revolutionaries around, just like in Cuba. Cuba is the way it is, man, because they still got some counter-revolutionaries that rolling around the neighborhoods, man,
Yeah.
trying, instigating, telling all kinds of lies, man. I had a few people, man, just recently, man, when I was in the city, come up to me, man, as neighbors, man, and tell me, man, I asked them, well, why you leave Cuba? Oh, because Cuba is so bad and it's so rotten and it's Castro's fault. And I said, man, please, man, don't give me that bullshit,
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna argue with you, because I know that regardless of the fact, if I argue with you, I'm not gonna be able to change you, because if I was gonna be able to change you, you would have never left Cuba.
Right. Right.
So there's not even a question of even arguing with those people that come from Cuba, because they're gonna tell you the bullshit anyway. But
Right.
nevertheless, man, it's capitalist. It's still capitalist in Cuba, and so that's why the system is the way it is, man. And on top of all the pressure that it's getting from the United States with the blockade and all that, they got a lot of, Cuba's gone through a lot, man, a lot. And I give them respect, because as quiet as it's kept, as small as the island is in comparison, they're able to survive.
Right.
They're able to survive. I give them a lot of credit, man. Give them a lot of credit.
It takes a lot to have a literal ongoing revolution for as many decades as they have. And this stuff that you point out, this is exactly where the cultural revolution aspect has its opportunity to really grow and flourish. Because
and really
after
continue
facets of the revolution, then you have to get to that point of actually showing people with those actions how life improves with having this system in place, in order to change the way that they think about resources versus commodities, of things that are actually fucking necessary for existence and therefore human rights. This is where those cultural facets come into play, to be able to educate people so that they can fucking grow beyond that capitalist thinking. And that takes multiple generations to really change the way an entire society views assets and resources, and an ethical stance on whether you can fucking commodify something that is necessary for life itself.
Right. It has to stick. It has to stick.
True. And that, that's why at the very, very, very early beginnings of the Cuban Revolution, how they put up how people put a lot of people up against the wall and shot them.
It's sad because there's still so many
and they killed them. They had to. They had no other choice.
Oh, sorry, you cut out for a minute.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I was scratching my feet. I was scratching my feet.
Well, like when it comes to even dealing with gusanos, like you were referring to a moment ago, a lot of them still have this fucked frame of mind of like, oh, well, Castro took away my family's this and my family's that. And I love to ask them, like, was that your grandpa's house? Or did your grandpa actually have a plantation? Because there's a fucking difference.
There's a difference.
Yeah,
There's a difference. There's a
You're
difference.
crying
yes, it
about
is.
losing
The
grandpappy's
little
plantation.
bodega, man, that Cubans had, they still had it. But the big farms and big factories, you know, because the first thing that the Cubans did was nationalize all the banks.
Yep.
Nationalize it, you know,
Yeah.
and it became people's banks, you know.
Yep.
That's the
And these
people.
former
That's the
plantations,
community.
these former plantations where people were enslaved are now normal, regular farmland that's, you know, being farmed by the people who live there, but you know, they actually fucking own it. They're not enslaved by somebody else who wants to
They
fucking
have
rape
control of their
them.
destiny.
You know what gets me mad? It gets me mad to know, man, that a country as rich as this country, man, there's people starving in this country. And in Cuba, nobody starves. Nobody.
Right.
Right. That's literally the difference. How can a place of 11 million people be able, even though it is revisionist, how can they still be able to feed everyone when you have a whole settler state empire that is literally hoarding our food and literally commodifying it, falsifying this whole scarcity thing and literally like sucking us dry with numbers and decimals that we don't have, and we don't have nothing.
Huh.
How in the hell does that happen?
Well, certainly not by the people's consent.
Yeah. And that's why I have such a problem with people that want to say so much bad about communism, because they don't actually know what communism actually is. They just listen to this bourgeois entity and communism bad. So being by or of the community, wash your house. Being by
Well,
or of the community, wash your house.
you know what Guame Torre talked about that. He said, man, that the capitalist tells the oppressed, take this gun, go fight, go kill. And they go fight, they kill, and they say, here, take this, go over there and kill. But they don't know why they're killing.
Yeah.
They just kill it. You know, they don't know why they kill it. You know, so
It's
just
a moment.
for the same reason they say, go kill the communists. So they go kill the communists. But yet they don't even know what a communist looks like.
Right. That's what they create. That is literally what they create, because communism literally means by or of the community. But in the bourgeois perspective, they promote communism as being a whole authoritarian dictatorship, even though the pot calling the kettle black, trying to go after these people that are supposedly so-called bad communists, but like being part of the community is devilish.
Well, they like
Right.
to paint it within a false framework from the start. Like I've seen a lot of people lately completely misunderstanding and misconstruing shit because they think that fuck faces like Fauci are communist. And, you know, when Fauci says bullshit like, oh, you'll own nothing and be happy about it. And it's like, first of all, fuck that capitalist pig motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, not a fucking communist, never has been, never fucking will be. And that is not communist ideology. People have a fundamental lack of understanding of the fucking difference between private property and personal property.
And personal.
Fucking
There's
think
a
that
difference.
mean, oh my God, the commies are coming for my house. No, you dumb motherfucker. The communists are coming for the means of production to be collectively fucking owned by everybody who works there. It has fuck all to do with your houses. The only motherfuckers who will be losing houses is corporations that don't have the right to own them in the first place. and landlords that are hoarding them. The landlord will get to keep the one house that they live in and they can fuck off on the rest because they're getting redistributed to people who actually fucking need housing.
If
Because
they don't like
those
it, they get
houses
shot.
are then being treated as private property because they are producing a quote unquote investment income for the landlord, and for them to be returned to being personal property means that they be seized from the landlord. Personal
Exactly.
property is your home, your car, your toothbrush, your fucking clothes. Ain't nobody coming for those. Under communism, you would own more because you would actually own your own home and own your place of work, not be a renter / wage slave. Get the fuck out of here.
Right. It's the community involved in that.
Yep.
That's it. That's it. There's literally nothing authoritarian about. I mean, like literally look at the once again. Look at the word itself. Look at the commune part.
Right. Community.
There's
It comes from
nothing
community.
bourgeois about community. There's nothing bourgeois about community. There's nothing Nazi about community. There's nothing of that sort.
Right.
It's all made up.
Right. In order to truly have community, motherfuckers who are Nazis, for example, need to get the fuck over their delusional fucking stupidity of thinking that being born white was somehow a fucking achievement that they fucking did. And
Meanwhile, they don't know who the hell they are.
superior to any
Yeah,
fucking body else. Because in order
got-
for them to actually be part of the community, they got to stop being cunts to the rest of the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I got a way of saying very simple. In communism, there's no such thing as you and me. It's we and us.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Damn
That's
straight.
yeah. And those people that are so-called white that celebrate this identity that doesn't exist, they don't even know who the hell they are. They're literally killing African people, literally killing Chicano people, Chinese people, and whatever not so white people, you know, to uphold this identity that doesn't exist. Meanwhile, they're Irish, you know, they're French, they're German, they are Italian, they are Greek, they are Portuguese. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? And especially here in Chicago, because Daley Sr., the Daley family that literally ran this damn city like a whole dictator, really, is Irish. And their parents came from the Great Potato Famine. So what do you think that says? What do you think that says?
It
Because
tells you that likely their family only fucking survived because of food donations from indigenous fucking tribes here. Because that's how most of the people who stayed in Ireland for any part of the potato famine fucking survived. Was
yeah,
they were
yeah.
getting donations from tribes here. So
Right.
for them to come here and then turn around and be bigoted fucking shit faces is ridiculous. It's like, really?
Right.
You forget how you fucking survived?
Is this like, are you that ignorant against your own history? How violent, how false is that? Like Daley Sr. literally was literally having the police treat Irish Appalachians just like us against his own people. How
Well,
ironic is that?
Well, it's the bigotry being delegated out simply due to association, because Irish Appalachians were very much intertwined with the indigenous and black communities in the Appalachians too. Hello, Melungeons.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they got the brunt of the racist bullshit for not being racist.
Right. Like, that's literally the main group of people that still have a basic idea of who they are and where they came from. I mean, hello, like, especially here, like in the community of Bridgeport, so many assimilated Irish, they don't know who the fuck they are. They're literally white supremacists, Proud Boys, other racist groups, you know, in Bridgeport. It's, you know, still segregated. So hello, you know, like not understanding who the hell they are, a whole fucking mess. And that's what a lot of people don't really truly understand, because the feedback of info has been so distorted from both camps.
Right.
And so like it's very important that we address every single nuance of Irish history here, because some of them did engage in colonialism, many of them didn't, but some of them did. And that's true. That's why we have to confront it, because the feedback of info will be much more clear, and people will start seeing and really starting to understand, you know, why did it happen? Why did it happen? Why did the race riots happen? Why did the 1919 race riots happen? Why did Tulsa happen? Because it did not happen out of nowhere. You know, it took years of formulating those conditions to get to Tulsa happening, to the Chicago riots happening. So like it's a lot of facets of history that we have to really confront. And you know, like it's definitely that time to confront it.
Right. And especially when, okay, in both of those examples, a lot of the fuel that you know, actually spurred those incidents was straight up fucking jealousy of these white people in the area being extremely fucking jealous that the Black community was prospering, that there was Black entrepreneurs, like specifically in Tulsa. Okay, all of Greenwood was known as Black Wall Street because it was an enormous section of town that was all successful Black businesses.
It was like it was on and popping. And the Black towns that were around Tulsa and Oklahoma City, I actually have a book on one of those towns. There's a lot of Afro Native history
Yep.
within that area. As like, you know, I have one of those books. I forgot what the town was called, but you know, it's still here, even though it wasn't, you know, it's not like the town it was back in the day. It's still very much here. They have cowboy rodeo events. I think they've been having them since the town was established. I believe the book was written by one of the descendants of the people that founded the town itself. So like, you know, it's just like so much
Incredibly
for
insightful.
yeah, so much success for so much trauma that was unlike anything. Because now we have an autobiography from from the longest living eyewitness to that massacre now.
Yep.
Now we get to hear it from her own words. These people are still here.
In Greenwood, there is a cultural center that is basically a historical museum centered around the Greenwood Massacre. And in there, they've got photos as well as, you know, the stories to go with them from those survivors. There's a whole room that's nothing but photos of survivors of the massacre and the things that they had to say. And like, mind you, most of these people were children when
Children.
the massacre happened.
Children.
You know, and you know, some of them were young adults and whatnot, but we're talking like kids that had to
Young
witness
people.
their families being brutally fucking murdered in the streets. And it's really fucking heartbreaking to read through
It's
a lot of those
heartbreaking.
testimonies that like a lot of these people only survived because they had familial ties to the indigenous tribes in the area and were able to escape to reservation land and meet up with their family members that were in the tribes and actually get some protection that way. So a lot of people don't realize that the majority of the Black population through Oklahoma came there on the fucking Trail of Tears with the native people,
Right.
you know?
Right. Like
Whether
Afro-Native people.
like, and I will acknowledge fully, this is one of the things I learned about from the curator of that community center too, that yes, part of that was Black slaves who were owned by Indigenous people, but a
Right.
significant part of it was also just free people who married into the tribes, that, you know, but nevertheless, the Trail of Tears is what brought them all to that area. And so, at least with the reservations being sovereign land, a lot of the people who survived the Tulsa massacre were able to make it to those places and, you know, live to see another fucking day. But still to
Yeah.
this day, still to this fucking day, that city is still run by the same fucking KKK family that started the Tulsa massacre.
Yes. 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 Like, yes. And I think the mayor literally just denounced the whole thing. Like it never happened. I think they reported on that. And I'm not even surprised because they don't want to confront it. That's the whole thing. They were the ones to start this whole thing from the beginning. And Tulsa is still haunted. It's still haunted because of what happened.
That literally just made my blood boil when you said that he's trying to fucking denounce it and claim it never happened, because you cannot fucking go to Greenwood and fucking see it with your own eyes and still try to deny that it happened. I've been there. I went to fucking Tulsa a couple years ago on my way out here and spent a few weeks in the area, and most of it in Greenwood, exploring the area and doing some research on this shit. And the entire fucking area of Greenwood that used to be big, beautiful houses and
Yep.
huge row buildings of business after business after business after business. Guess what? All those neighborhoods are full of just grassy plots with driveways and stairways going to nowhere. You can't
Yeah.
fucking deny that the entire fucking area was burned and bombed the fuck out when you see driveways and stairways to fucking nowhere that just lead up to an empty patch of fucking grass. They
That's
tried
it.
to cover it up by building the fucking university on this fucking hallowed ground where so many people were fucking murdered,
We're
to try to
murdered.
cover it up
Our
with that.
people.
Oh, wait, now there's a campus here. Let's fucking distract you away from the neighborhood right behind the campus where you can
Yeah.
still see where people's homes used to fucking stand.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. Just look at the pictures. Look at the pictures. They took a lot of pictures. They took a lot of pictures during that massacre. You know, like just look at the pictures.
The pictures that are in, okay, that cultural center I was telling you about,
Yeah.
have all of the newspapers from back then hanging on the walls in the main room with very graphic pictures of the people being fucking murdered in the streets, with their bodies being stacked in the fucking theater, the whole fucking 9 yards. It is absolutely gruesome. The
It's
shit that they
absolutely
fucking
gruesome.
printed in those newspapers, and the white fucking KKK racist pieces of shit who did it were posting these pictures in the newspaper basically for bragging rights.
Bragging rights. It was bragging rights. And this did
Sickening.
not happen that long ago. And you want to know how it didn't happen that long ago? Because my great grandfather was born either 1919 or 1921, but either or around the time that it happened in Louisville. So, like, don't try to sit up there and say that, you know, this is a whole, you know, like 500 years ago. No, this was 102 years ago. And my great grandfather's 102nd birthday was back in January. So don't tell me anything about that. Don't tell me that I don't know what the hell's going on, because I'm of Choctaw heritage. So I know this. I know this. So like, don't try that. Don't try that.
It's fucking disturbing that those motherfuckers are trying that and actually trying
Right.
to like shit never fucking happened. And it's sad enough already that so many people don't even fucking know about Black Wall Street and that massacre
Yeah.
because it doesn't fucking get taught in schools. But now they're
It
trying
never
to
gets taught. It
and be
never
like,
gets
"Oh,
taught.
that never fucking happened. Get the fuck out of here."
Right.
The
They don't want
absolute
to.
fuck out of here.
They don't want to teach it, because that's the whole point. They do not want those kids to know. They don't want those kids to know what they did to those people, what they did to an entire neighborhood that was self-sufficient, literally turned into Swiss cheese and more. They don't want those kids to know, because if they knew, then they will have that revolutionary breakthrough of understanding, wait a minute, this is not the US that I was taught to believe in.
Right.
They
And
don't want that
especially
breakthrough.
when it comes to the facet of the KKK getting the support of the US fucking military in bombing Greenwood out and burning it to the fucking ground. And people are like,
Yeah,
well, wait a minute, isn't that fucking illegal for military to be, committing acts of war against
they
their own
don't care if
people
it's
on
illegal.
US
They
soil
don't
and
care if it's
places like
illegal.
this? They don't fucking care. They
They
never
don't care if it's
fucking
illegal.
care. The government took the side of the fucking KKK and fucking helped annihilate Greenwood.
Annihilate
They
Greenwood.
fucking did airdrops on
Right.
Greenwood.
Airdrops, air bombs, everything, gunshots, everything. Like, they don't care if it's illegal or not. It's the US we're talking about. They don't give a damn about legality. They only care about the repression and the genocide against oppressed, colonized people. And like, this is like, mind you, this is literally on the land of the so-called civilized tribes. Like, so essentially, this is not really their land, but that's the whole point. They were literally, because when the Indian Removal Act was signed, they were literally brought onto this concentration camp, 5 concentration camps, and literally turned psychologically European, just like how they did the Chicanos. You know what I'm saying? Like, making them like become slave owners as well, human traffickers too. And that is still a scar that those Native people too are still carrying today, because of Black Quantum and the freedmen stuff. And the Creek freedmen have finally just got their recognition for citizenship with the Creek people about a few days ago. Like, literally just a few days ago. That shows you just how deep the colonialism went, because they made Native people see African people as cattle too. They're Native, but they think like Europeans, like they're colonizers, the same colonizers that came and literally tried to kill every indigenous person that they saw, and literally ruined the civilizations that stood. So like, this did not happen a long time ago. There's whole books on this. And there's now an eyewitness autobiography, to the whole thing. So don't pretend like you don't know what the hell's going on, because it's literally right there. Like, just read what they did to those Afro-Native people, to a
And this is
neighborhood.
real fucking history classes. Because dude,
Yeah.
there are so many fucking examples like this in the last 100 to 150 years where enormous successful Black communities got fucking annihilated by a bunch of fucking racists and the government backing them. Tulsa is just one of the biggest examples. But this type of shit has happened all over the fucking country. There was a piece that I'd seen last week or the week before that literally had a map on there of all of the successful Black communities that got fucking wiped out by racist pieces of shit because
Yes.
they were fucking mad that how dare you have pigment in your skin and be succeeding in business and not be living in absolute fucking destitute poverty. How fucking dare you?
How dare you? And once again, it's that class structure in place. The so-called white do not want to see the so-called Black people be successful, to be self-sufficient, to be self-determining, because this was unique to the material conditions of that time, of these around the time that these massacres have happened, like Greenwood, Rosewood in Florida, because there's a whole movie on the Rosewood massacre. So like, there's no reason that, they had a reason. They wanted power. They wanted power, and they, in their brainwashed ass minds, they felt under attack. It was the fight. It was essentially a fabricated fight response against my people.
Yep.
That was what happened.
Of these racist pieces of shit being like, oh, it's not your fault that you're white and poor. It's this other person's fault for being Black and successful. That's what's caused you to be poor. And, how dare they? You're white, and it's like,
Yeah,
if you're fucking dumb enough to believe that, then
like come on.
Way too much to unpack there. Like, come the fuck on. Like, how idiotic do you have to be? And we still see the same rhetoric amongst today's neo-Nazis and other forms of fucking white supremacists, that these stupid fucking cunt morons actually fucking think that the reason why they are in financial destitution is because of immigrants and shit. And it's like, what fucking pipe are you smoking, motherfucker?
Right.
You are punching down instead of punching up at the fucking people who are actually doing all of the oppressing.
We're doing all this stuff that got you in that condition in the first place. It's not my fault that you're poor. The reason why you're poor is because the bourgeoisie treating you the exact same way as us. They're just hiding that from you, and they made you believe that you're an identity that you're not, and that you have to become white to essentially be on their level, to make nice with them. And where did that get your own people here?
Right.
Where did that get you? Did it get you better housing? Did massacring Afro-Native people give you more better access to food? No, it did not. You're still poor. It's not my fault.
These people who talk shit and tried to claim that, all the immigrants are just coming here for the welfare and all that shit. And it's like,
no, it's not. No, they're not.
Because your ass is sitting in a fucking trailer in Alabama fucking collecting food stamps. Who are you to talk about who's on welfare? Like, the majority of people on welfare are white people in poverty. And so it's, what the fuck's wrong with you when they start talking shit about anybody with pigment getting some fucking welfare assistance for food access? And it's like, excuse me, pot meat kettle, motherfucker. Like, other poor people are not the cause of your problems, motherfucker. Like, bourgeoisie are the cause of all of our problems and destitution, motherfucker.
That's what they don't want you to know. But clearly, like, that cognitive dissonance, like, because that the bourgeoisie does not care for you. They don't care for you. They know they will dispose you at any given time. That, but you don't want to acknowledge the fact that you can be a disposable next. Like, it, even as part of the KKK, they're not safe either, because once again, that's the whole point, right? These people that don't know who the hell they actually are, where their people came from, and like putting on this whole front of the so-called white race, going extinct. Because there's literally no such thing. But that delusion that the bourgeoisie implement to poor European Americans, and thinking that they're going extinct, but they're not. Their culture is going extinct, because the more that they literally embrace being white, the more that the Irish language is fading, the more that the Celtic languages are fading. Did they think about that?
Well, thankfully, there's a lot of Irish and Scottish people who are like taking to social media and whatnot and calling out this bullshit and going, excuse me, motherfuckers, you got no business spouting this bigoted fucking shit, and here's why. Because at least there is a decent number of Irish and Scottish people who haven't lost their connections with the indigenous tribes here, who they are thankful to for their fucking survival through the potato famine. They're, ones who haven't lost sight of the fact that the only reason why any Irish people here ever got fucking considered quote unquote white was because they started participating in systemic racism. And
right,
are going, excuse me, what the fuck's wrong with you? That's not how you solve this fucking problem. You just became the problem, you fucking assholes,
They became part of the problem. They became part of the problem. And there's a lot of Irish in Ireland itself, that have a lot of vitriol against the Irish here, because they have lost so much of who they actually are, and they don't know their destiny. They don't know their real destiny. They don't know their real identity. Mark Wahlberg, who's Irish, is literally a racist, a fully assimilated Irish person. Like, it's literally like, is a whole history on this. There's whole books on this. So I don't want to hear any kind of pretending that they don't know what the hell is going on to the Irish people here, because it's a lot of nuance to this, but the thing still remains. It's economic reform. They are economically reformed people. That is who they are. It's not like they are actually starting to relearn and embrace who they are, if they're being so economically reformed that they don't know who the hell they are themselves.
No, most of them, their idea of being Irish means celebrating St. Patty's Day. And it's like, wait a fucking minute, because
it's not that.
Anything about St. Patty's Day, you wouldn't fucking celebrate it, because that was a British fucking cunt coming in and killing off a bunch of indigenous Irish people for being pagan.
Yeah. I would need for them to rethink that.
Right.
I'm gonna need them to really rethink that, because if you actually knew, like, you're celebrating your oppressor, you have your own oppressor too, the English.
Right. You're
like,
celebrating
did y'all think about that?
Colonizer, and it's so fucking stupid too how people stick to the stupid storyline, the fable of, but he was killing off all the snakes in Ireland, and it's like, you dumb motherfuckers, snakes
Those
have
are
never
not snakes
lived on the island of Ireland. There has never been fucking snakes there. The snakes they were referring to was a proverbial fucking insult to pagan people.
Right.
They were calling pagan snakes.
Right. And that's what they don't know. They don't even know their history either.
Right.
So who's really winning here? Who's really winning here?
The propaganda game is definitely being won by the fucking colonizers, because they convinced people of a bunch of stupid shit.
Yeah. And even the colonizers are losing their mind too. Because, did they really think that this whole system is going to last, forever? Like, nothing's going on. Like, they didn't imperialize the whole damn world. Like,
right.
We read this in Wretched of the Earth, right?
Right. Oh,
I mean,
goodness.
look around you. Look around you. Look around you. I mean, you literally have the whole fucking KK Canadian um parliament celebrating a Nazi, and we warned the KK Canadians that they would be next, and they didn't want to listen to us 3 years ago, and they're being involved in the genocidal planned military intervention on Haiti, and trans rights concessions being threatened there too.
Fucked,
We
man.
warned them they would be next. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to listen, and now look.
Right. They thought that everything was just peachy fucking up there and would stay that way. And it's like, no, it wasn't. Y'all were just fucking hiding what, criminal fucking human rights offenses you've been committing systemically too. And now
Right.
it's all coming out in the open. You can't fucking pretend anymore like you're not just as big of a piece of shit as the United States.
Right. Like, there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide anymore. So don't put on this Canadian KK Canada is better BS, because we're not hearing it. We warned y'all. Y'all didn't want to listen, and look at your own quote unquote better government celebrating a whole Nazi. I mean, I think there's about a few thousand Nazis that came to the so-called Canadian side of Turtle Island after the Second World War. Did they think about that?
Yep, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. I would need them to really rethink their privilege guilt trip.
Right.
So,
And trying to fucking, pretend to be sorry about it, or sorry, since, they're Canadian. After being called out all fucking over social media. Like, excuse me, Canada, what the fuck are you doing giving standing ovations to somebody who was literally a volunteer fucking Nazi? This isn't somebody who got fucking swept up in fucking, forced into their military. No, this is somebody who volunteered to join the Nazi party and military and was a massive fucking hand in countless fucking murders. And you're applauding this piece of fucking shit? And they're trying to pretend like, oh, we didn't know. Yeah, the fuck you did.
you did know. You did know. You did know. Because if you didn't know, then, like, how in the hell are y'all applauding him and you don't know? You did know. They did know.
Mm-hmm.
All of them did know.
They're pandering. They're trying to get people to, feel bad for him. Of like, oh, see, they really didn't know. It was just an innocent mistake. No, the fuck it's not.
No, it's not. I draw the line at that. I draw the line at that because you knew that this man was a Nazi. You knew that this man was a genocider. You knew that he had a hand in genocide. Y'all knew it. Y'all
Right.
just waited until this moment. Ironically, we're not stupid. We literally did like a quick 30-second Google search, and it literally came up. And they want to backtrack and say that they didn't know. They didn't know. They didn't know because if y'all didn't know, then why in the hell were there 2,000 Nazis that came to the Canadian side after the Second World War? Explain that to me.
Right. If I can Google his fucking name and find out his entire fucking World War II fucking records and the heinous crimes he committed, don't tell me that your fucking Department of Interior, whatever it is, in fucking Canada, where they're supposed to be, I don't know, background checking motherfuckers before trying to give them a award and applaud them on the goddamn stage. Don't tell me you can't do a proper background check, motherfucker. You could have asked Google. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you're
yeah, like come
has much
on,
more detail than Google does, motherfuckers.
like
Oh,
like
God, so ridiculous that they want to feign ignorance. And it's like, you can't. Now you're just fucking lying through your teeth, motherfuckers.
I
I
know, I
was-
know,
I looked at the clock and we are over 3 hours.
yeah.
We're
I literally just jumped on this call because I was out. I literally
What's
jumped on
that?
this call because I was out, and like I came at the right time, so I'm here.
I'm glad you made it.
Yeah,
We were trying to get a hold of you right at the beginning and stuff too. So I was glad to see when you popped in.
yeah,
But yeah, this has been a dope ass discussion as always.
yeah.
But all right, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the recording here so that we don't drive people absolutely batshit on YouTube. But I will see you tomorrow for
All
the
right,
time reading.
seize the
That'll be
time.
7 Eastern time, so 4 Pacific. And did you guys end up meeting last week? If not, then we'll be on the third part this week.
We didn't end up we ended up not doing it because I was supposed to like take over on my Zoom, but I missed track of time, so didn't
It
happen.
happened. Okay.
Yeah,
My apologies for having to cancel.
it's okay.
But we can pick back up where we left off tomorrow then.
I bet.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I fucking love that book.
I love it. I literally love it. Like I swear to God, we need to read more of it. It's gonna
Oh
be
yeah.
a ball tomorrow.
And for this one, I'm really fucking looking forward to meeting Johanna on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's dope that Kwame got that set up. I cannot wait to sit down and talk with her and the other elders. It'll be cool to have Miss Cleo back on deck too, because it's been a while since Sister Cleo's been able to partake, but since she's one of the original Young Lords elders, she's going to be joining us Sunday too. So
Yay!
it's gonna be fucking fire.
Yay!
So, anywho, I'm excited for this stuff. I love it. But catch you tomorrow. Until then,
Right.
revolutionary love and all power.
All power.
Have a good night.